So hey guys, I'm Carl O'Rourke, and with me today we have Mr. Neil Sanderson, drummer and piano player of the amazing Canadian rock band 3 Days Grace. Neil, thanks for taking the time to chat with us, man.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. How you doing?
I'm not too bad, and how's the day treating you?
Oh, it's a good, man. It's a rainy day in Canada, so I'm getting caught up on. I just spent the last 3 days out in the forest in beautiful sunshine, so now I'm getting caught up on all the stuff I need to do.
So let's get straight into it. You guys have just released Outsider, and let me start by saying, man, it is a great record. Congratulations to you and the guys.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. We put a lot of work into it, and it's always really gratifying when, we kind of lock ourselves up and shut out the world and work so hard on something, and then kind of it's time to take the brush off the canvas and hope for the best, and to have it surface and received like it has been, man, is the best feeling. It never gets old.
Fantastic. That's what I was about to ask you. How has the response been treating you guys so far?
Oh, it's been overwhelmingly positive, man. People kind of are really tapping into the messages that we kind of were conveying, and there's some common threads with the theme on this album of the album's called Outsider, and the album has a lot of different themes of embarking on an unknown journey for better or for worse, and sort of wanting to escape all the craziness and influences around you every day. And
sure.
And I think that that started as sort of just in conversations of our own, sort of wanting to sort of isolate ourselves from all the craziness. We had just come off tour when we started this record, so I think that set the tone of just wanting to kind of get a little farther away from the sensory overload and chaos.
Of course. And what I love about Outsider is just how raw it is, and by that I mean it retains a human element that gets lost in a lot of hard rock today. I mean, some of the bands I grew up loving fall into that whirlwind of being painfully layered and overproduced, but that hasn't seemed to happen with you guys. Is that something you're very conscious of when you enter the studio to make sure that doesn't happen, or how did that go?
We're very conscious of that. I think some producers and bands do make that mistake, like you said, of thinking that the more layers you put upon something, the heavier and bigger it's going to be. And we really kind of think to the contrary on that. Some of our favorite, my favorite band of all time is Tool. And Tool just sounds so much larger than life and so big. But if you really take a listen to it, it's a guitar, drums, bass, and a singer. And look, I think Led Zeppelin is the classic example of that. How sometimes it's the negative space in between the music and letting the instrument have its own part and breathe that creates that larger than life thing, and not just overbearing sound all the time.
Absolutely, and a couple of fine choices there as well. And a couple of my favourite tracks on there are, Love Me or Leave Me, with Matt's vocal delivery is just chilling, and then Infrared, it was so great to hear a big guitar and bass track. And I find with the record that these two traits never really step away. It's a big guitar album with vocals that you gravitate towards. And then there's your drum work, of course, which is just thunder and lightning in the best sense of it. It's a shame that records like that are actually becoming harder to find. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do, and I think you have to. I think one of the things is it can be a little more difficult to write something that you can sort of strip away. That's one of the exercises that we're always doing in the studio. Is we'll record some stuff and feel free form, the ability to experiment with different sounds and parts and all that kind of thing, but we always kind of in the back of our minds know that we're going to have a process where we're going to strip a lot of that away, and kind of see where it sits just by removing things, and we always leave time for that just so it doesn't become too convoluted, and like I said, giving each part its own space. I think if it's I think it's less difficult to write and create something that's so introverted and obscure that you're the only person that understands it. But I think reciprocally, but I love, there are introverted obscure records that I love as well. But I think it's reciprocally difficult to to create something that is sort of concise and minimalist at times, that still engages and compels the listener, and you know, people can kind of hear the message and kind of get it. You know, that's not an easy thing to do.
No, of course not. And in addition to breaking the pattern and going to record The Outsider in a remote woodland, essentially, you guys also enlisted a dream team of sorts to work on the record with you, with Gavin Brown, Howard Benson, Mike and Chris and so on. That must have been fantastic, and the process looked like a lot of fun too. I mean, snowmobiles, games hooked up to theatres. It looked like both a fun experience as well as a cathartic one. Would this be fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, part of that was just we just finished a huge tour in like Eastern Europe and Russia last summer during a huge heat wave and stuff. So we were like, you know, when a band is that close for that long and it's that hot and you're on a bus and everything, you kind of like need to get home and make sure like none of the other bandmates want to kill you or vice versa. So that for us was like we had to just go like hang out and be friends, and so yeah, I've got like some land up 2.5 hours north of Toronto, and that's where we went up there just to kind of hang out, drink some beers, ride some ATVs and stuff, and that's kind of when we decided that yeah, we were, you know, capable of making a record together right now. We're creatively in a good space, and then so we just decided to stay up there and not worry about the hassle of driving into downtown Toronto every day.
Is that a conversation you have to have after every tour? Is that something that comes up regularly?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's any sort of relationship, right? Whether it's spousal or rock band or anything, you gotta you're gonna see the best and the worst of everybody when you're that close on a bus touring all over the world with them. So yeah, communication, you know, it's like, it's cliche, but communication is actually key. And yeah, you know, we're lucky that we're a band that gets along and we're friends outside of music as well. So
yeah,
that helps.
You can see that just watching you guys. I'd love to talk about some of the acoustic work that you guys are currently doing at the moment. And I love the philosophy you have as a band that you refer to as the campfire test, which for anyone who doesn't know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is the idea that if a song is a good song, it will translate well to an acoustic rendition. And I was also excited to learn that even if the initial demos you create, you know, start heavy, you intentionally strip them back to the bare bones just to ensure that it is a compelling song. And I mean, you guys already have such a great catalogue of compelling songs. I'm wondering, would you ever reimagine even more of your other works acoustically with the idea of embarking on like a purely acoustic percussive tour as 3 Days Grace?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You explained the campfire test completely correctly. I actually have a folder on my desktop on my computer called CFT, and that's all that is we take whatever song, no matter how heavy it is, yeah, record it with one guitar, one vocal, and like, I don't know, live with it for a little bit and see if it makes us feel something. And if it does, then we're in a good place when we go to the studio. So we do that with all of our stuff. We always have. That's a lot of the time that's how we start to write something is just a guitar and a vocal idea, so it's pretty natural to break it back to those components. And in fact, yeah, we decided at the last minute that we were kind of just celebrate the release of Outsider. We went and hit 8 American cities in like 10 days, New York, Chicago, we were in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, all these big cities, and we just decided to take some acoustic gear and just go in and just play some little shows. We went to like some cool record shops and set up a little acoustic vibe and that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I think after doing that with some of the new stuff, like, you know, there's a new song on our album called Infrared, which is definitely kind of already a fan favorite. We thought like, hey, why don't maybe we'll like record an acoustic version of that and just, yeah, exactly do what you said, is just rethink it and see where it goes, because it felt pretty good when we were playing it live acoustically. And there's some footage of it online, actually. I think if you go to, I don't know, 3 Days Grace Acoustic this year, you'll see some of those shows that I'm talking about. Yep. And it was a lot of fun, and it's cool to be intimate like that. The fans appreciate it, and it's fun. You know what? And as a drummer, I don't have to sweat as much. That's nice too.
Right, of course. I actually, as a drummer, I thought it was very cool to listen to your playlist for album inspirations for Outsider. And what struck me most was the eclectic mix behind some of the inspiration. Like, you have Slipknot, Genesis, Gowan, and then you even draw from the classic Lost Boys film. And as a member who plays, a couple of roles in this band with drumming and piano and percussion, etc., did you feel it was important to have a varied mix of influences to inform some of the Outsider, or was it just what you were listening to at the time, or a combination of both, maybe?
Definitely a combination of both. I mean, I think we, as 3 Days Grace, we consider this whole experience, like the touring and the record making and the meeting the fans and everything. We in our minds, we consider it to be this, like, you know, this journey. It's a journey with like different chapters and stuff. So as far as creating the music, we would rather have like from record to record and from song to song, like vary as far as styles and we'd much rather do that than kind of stick to the same sonic plan. I think that, first of all, wouldn't be as fun to make, and we just, you know, we do listen to so many different styles of music, and especially in 2018, it's a great time because a lot of artists are bending the genres, you know, and bending them and blending them and stuff. And I think it's a great time because the fans accept that. They don't, you know, if you want to experiment with different genres through one record, fans are kind of willing to be on that journey with you now more than ever, which is cool. Like, if you listen to some of the biggest artists right now, like Post Malone and stuff, like, I can't even tell what genre he is, but it's cool.
Right, yeah.
You know? So yeah, it's a cool time to be able to do that, and we've never been afraid to do that, but the influences are a big part of it. Like, I'm a huge Genesis fan, you know, but sometimes I need to listen to Slipknot to hit me over the head, or when I'm driving, or if I'm at the gym working out or something like that. And so that's kind of what we're exposing ourselves to all the time. So when it comes to create something, I think that the natural influences just come out. I don't think it's something we really like overthink, that we need to mash this and create this. It's more just like, let's just go and see where we go, you know?
Awesome. I've only got a couple of questions left for you, dude, and the first of them is, you know, 3 Days Grace as a band. I mean, just to acknowledge a few of the highlights of your career. I mean, sold millions of records worldwide, won awards, broken records, and the list goes on. And, you know, now that we're in an age where music is so accessible that it's almost dangerously close to being expendable. I mean, new bands are finding it so hard to survive, and so many of the greats are calling it a day. But you guys don't share the opinion, and I'm glad you don't share the opinion that rock is dead. But obviously it has changed a great deal, and the future is, of course, unknown. What do you see the future for rock looking like? Does it excite you or concern you? And how do you think things would have differed if 3 Days Grace started today?
Well, first of all, I think the outlook is really bright. I think everything, you know, in music and arts is very cyclical. Everything kind of rolls around, and I think in a time, you know, any time that, you know, pop music and, you know, and I'm open-minded. I listen to a lot of great pop. I think there's a lot of great producers and artists in every genre you can find.
Yeah, completely.
But I think people, there's an honesty and there's a danger to rock and roll, and it's unbridled, and it's okay to be raw. And it's one of the only genres where it's okay to be noisy and raw and rough around the edges, you know, and sometimes the imperfections are the nuances that keep rock and roll honest and dangerous, like I say. And I think people are always going to reach for that because I think, you know, there's so much contrived stuff in the world, just in music and television. There's, you know, so many singing shows and all this, like, really heavily contrived, heavily produced, heavily thought of concepts that it's human nature to want to kind of escape from that and not revolt against it, but sort of yearning for something that just feels a little more honest and from the heart. So I think for that reason, rock and roll will always be there and strong, you know.
Sure. And if you know 3 Days Grace started today, do you guys think that, you know, with that in mind, that it would carry on the same?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I work with young artists on the side when I'm at home. I kind of help develop young artists, and yeah, it is daunting in today's world to kind of to try to think that you're going to create a household name that everyone's going to know. It's the competition is fierce, but from my experience, I think staying true to yourself and making your fans and your listeners know that the stuff that you're singing about and writing about is coming from a real place, for, like, you know, whether it's deep in your psyche or something that you don't like that's going on about the world, or just you know, struggling from the inside or facing your own demons and stuff like that. Like, if you can put that into paper and write it down and put that stuff into words that are normal human feelings, it's amazing when people read that stuff and connect to it and they say, hey, that's real, that's how I feel.
Of course.
That's when the connection really starts to happen. And, you know, with 3 Days Grace, I've been really fortunate to maintain that through the years. But it's just, I think the goal or the key is from us is just that it starts in our minds and our hearts, and it's honest. So then people recognize that, and it becomes real to them too.
Cool. And finally, man, my last question for you is I'd love to know a bit about what's next for 3 Days Grace. And I was also out with a couple of friends yesterday, and when I heard that I was going to be talking with you, they, absolutely made me ask this: that is there any chance of maybe getting you guys over to Dublin in the near future?
Oh man, I would love to so much. I backpacked when I was like 19. I backpacked and I went to Ireland, and I was staying in Galway, and I went to the Aran Islands, which was one of the coolest spots I've ever been.
Yeah, I was only there a week or so ago.
But yeah, oh man, it's so nice. But I remember, and because I know the weather the sun hadn't come out in like a month or something like that, and everybody was saying like the sun had not come out in so long. Well, I got there, and it was like 5 days of nothing but beautiful sunshine.
Oh, gorgeous! And
yeah, it was amazing. It was the only time I'm Canadian, and it was the only time that I felt like I had the best tan going.
I love it, man. I love it.
That's not normal for a Canadian.
It's not normal for Irish guy either. Trust me. Okay, man. Well, listen. Thank you so much for your time and talking to us here at Metal Wani. The very best of luck with everything else you got going on this year, and we'll hopefully catch you again real soon, Neil.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
Have a great day, man.
Thank you both.